So, South Africa, one of the only places in the world where being racist is cool, but too much racism will get you slapped in the face. Yeah, this has nothing to do with the video. I just wanted to introduce my country. So, yeah, South Africa has a problem. The problem is it's not original. I mean, it's really not original. And not in a sense where you get inspired by another franchise to do something similar. No, South Africa doesn't do that. I mean, it copies word for word, bar for bar on some, hey, let me see your answers, bro. That's what South Africa is. And they mostly just ask America. Sometimes it's other countries, but just mostly America. And it's not only movies that they copy music, fashion, and even the accents. Yeah, a lot of people in South Africa sound like Americans. I do sound like American too sometimes, so, you know. To prove my point, which one of these two pictures over here is South African or American? Trick question, they're both South African. It's a problem. We have a serious problem. But when did this culture of let me check your answers start for South Africa exactly? Yeah, this is gonna be a long. The roots of American influence in South Africa actually starts way back in the early 1900s. When American mercenaries, educators, and entertainers started establishing connections with South African communities. Subadi John Dube would become the first president of the African National Congress, the ANC, in 1912. He actually studied in Ohio, in a college, Oberlin in Ohio. That's where he studied. Yeah. He maintained ties with African American leaders and disseminated their ideas through South African publications. Additionally, African American sailors and entertainers would introduce elements of American culture to South Africans, such as jazz and boxing. I mean, even Nelson Mandela was a boxer. That's just to prove how actually, influential they were or still are. And the apartheid era's parallel between the US civil rights movement and South Africa's struggle against racial segregation became more pronounced. From the 1950s, African American leaders and organizations would actively support South African liberation movements, opposing apartheid and fostering economic and cultural ties. Maybe that's where that whole Zulu parade came from. My lord. This period in time saw a mutual exchange of ideas and strategies between both countries. This was actually from both sides, from the activists and the actual governments of both countries. Because, yeah, man, America was a big supporter of the apartheid regime. In fact, while the introduction to television in South Africa in 1976 marked a significant shift in culture consumption due to international sanctions and boycotts against the apartheid regime, South African broadcasters had to rely on American programs. Because while the rest of the world was sanctioning and boycotting the apartheid regime, America was still in good relations with it. To the point that in 1986, the president at the time, President Ronald Reagan, vetoed the Anti-Apartheid Act. That veto was thankfully bypassed by Congress, which led to sanctions and also boycotts against the apartheid regime, which in my opinion was actually the main reason or the tipping point of the apartheid regime actually falling and then founding the new South Africa that we know. Some love, don't love, I don't know. Comment if you like South Africa. Oh my lord, what am I doing? But before that, shows like Miami Vice and $6 Billion Man were staples in South Africa, which introduced American lifestyles and values to South African viewers. And with the end of apartheid in 1964 and the lifting of international sanctions, South Africa experienced an influx of American media, fashion, and consumer products. The proliferation of satellite TV, the internet, and global brands seemed to entrench American norms into South Africa. Urban centers like Johannesburg became the hub for American-inspired lifestyle, with the youth adopting US slang, music, and fashion trends. Fashion trends. Yeah, words are hard sometimes, guys. Come on. But while America had influenced South Africa heavily, that did not mean that the country did not have its own sense of identity, culture, and practices. In fact, South Africa has 12 official languages. Not one, not two, but 12. Actually 13 if you count the South African Sign Language. But yeah, 12 different languages that have their own culture, own identity, and their own history. One country. And I have to say language, not people, because South Africa is actually weird in the sense that you can find a Indian white person and a black Afrikaner as well as a white Zulu. It's a mixture, which is why I prefer to stay away from politics, because you hear some crazy things and you all have never been to South Africa, so you don't understand what happens here. You just don't listen to the news. You have to visit the place. But this is not what we came for. I tend to digress. South Africa is very diverse to the point that it's actually weird when you see people complaining about South Africa when they have not been in South Africa. But if it is so diverse and there is so many misunderstandings, why don't South Africans actually clear up the room? Why don't they explain what actually happens in South Africa, the truth, by creating music, stories, fashions that actually explain what goes on in this bloody damn country? I wanted the same thing too, and the reasons are actually more like excuses, are actually kind of pathetic, no lie. It's disappointing, man. Yeah, the reasons the creators have for copying are as reasonable as you would expect them to be. But to test your ability to smell bullshit from a while away, let's actually play a game now. It's called Which One Is Bullshit? Simple game, simple answers. You just see which one is bullshit and you just say bullshit. You ready to play? You don't have a choice because you're watching this video. So yes, so let's start. Which one of these excuses is bullshit? Is it A, it's not theft, it's a tribute? B, we were never taught to value our own stories? C, we're trying to break global markets? And D, we just don't have the budget to reinvent the wheel. Now, which one is bullshit? If you chose all of them, you are right! Now for your prize. Just like and subscribe and you will get more videos like this one. Yeah, I just that sounded like Johnny Bravo for a minute. Hey, told you I sound like American sometimes. Now I must admit that some of these excuses are actually legitimate reasons as to why South Africa is unoriginal. But bar for bar though? Bar for bar? That's kind of lazy. That's very lazy. Other than that, some of them really do make sense. Like the film industry having limited funding. Because while institutions like the National Film and Video Foundation provide support, resources are often insufficient for big projects. Independent filmmakers frequently struggle to secure sufficient funds to create these type of projects. While distribution is also a problem, as now local films are always having competition with international projects that have a larger budget. This competition is prevalent both in cinema and in streaming platforms. This competition, combined with limited market resources, restricts South African films internationally and even locally. And while this is pressure for filmmakers, the pressure just keeps on getting worse for them. as the recent reductions in tax incentive for South African films has really hurt the industry, making it less attractive for local and international investors who actually want to make any South African film. Basically, it's much more riskier to actually make a film in South Africa than it's ever been in the world right now. I don't know if that changed after the whole, VAT thing, or maybe a VAT doesn't affect it, but yeah, man, it's bad. Bar for bar, though. It's absolutely crazy. But thankfully, they do get hate for it. In fact, in South Africa, there's a strong dislike for those who imitate Americans, especially those that like to sound like Americans. They get really hated on. If somebody speaks in a way that sounds remotely American, whether that's from New York or somebody from, I don't know, Mississippi, they will often be looked down upon. People will rightfully assume that you're trying to act like you're from America, which makes it seem as if you are trying to appear from a higher status or just better than everybody around you. That's partially because of how South Africans, especially in the past, and now it's a little bit different, viewed Americans as superior. Back then, if you've ever been in America, even once, you had bragging rights for life. So naturally, those who sounded or acted American were often seen as cheese boys or cheese girls, a term for people who seemed more richer or privileged. And in a country like South Africa, where the wealth gap is so huge, this created a lot of resentment. Even I got that whole cheese boy label, and I've never had more than 1,000 rand in my account. So yeah, that is and they don't say this like in a way that's like, oh, he's a cheese boy in a cool way. It's more like a diss, like, you don't know any better, you're a cheese boy. You know what I'm saying? You don't know the struggle, you don't know the life. I grew up with you. What you mean I don't understand? Nigga, when you had no food, I had no food too. Like what? When we used to eat water for supper, I was there too, nigga. Just because I talk like this does not make me better, dog. Yo, it's annoying. It's annoying, bruh. It's annoying. I'm smiling right now, but it's funny now, but like, it's annoying. It really is. It really is. It's still annoying. I still get labeled that and something. This made it worse. This right here made it very, very worse. But I don't care, dog. This wasn't limited to sounding like American. If you dressed or even listened to certain music, you were considered a skr or yo-yo, which basically means cheese boy, but you know what I'm saying? Because, slangs change. I've never been called a skr or yo-yo though, so guess I'm too broke for that. And just that the levels of hate and acceptance is different depending on which era you're from. People from Gauteng or Cape Town might be slightly or mildly annoyed with you, or just fully accept you if you sounded American, while places like KwaZulu-Natal has a strong hatred for you if you sound American. And it's not that they want to cause you physical harm or anything like that. It's just that they don't like what you represent. These regions often have their own way of dressing, way of speaking, and their own culture. It comes off as disrespectful or as if you are trying to act as if you are superior to them. Because like I said, South Africa has a crazy wealth gap. It's even worse if you're a black South African who speaks English, because English is often seen as a higher class language. So if you speak English or sound more polished in it, you're often called out for it or even mocked for it. Sometimes they'll even call you George. My childhood had a lot of bullying. Weirdly enough, I was the bully. So somebody make sense of that. If South Africans hate people who imitate Americans so much, why do these people still do it? I mean, like, if they really are that persecuted, being made fun of, and all those things, why do they still persist into it? Well, the simple reason is basically there's exceptions, and these exceptions are annoyingly inconsistent. Take, for example, South Africa's hip hop era. For a time, nearly every new song on radio or TV was hip hop. And it wasn't local flavored hip hop like Kwaito or Bacardi. It was straight up American style hip hop. Artists dressed like Americans, acted like Americans, and also used American slang, including the B word, which, by the way, is a huge no go in this country. Listen, dog, listen, come here. Don't ever in your life ever call a South African woman the B word. I don't even want to say it right now because I'm scared my sister might come in and just, you know what I'm saying? I'm not in that. Don't ever do that. But despite that, people loved them. Yes, sure, they called women the B word, but people loved them. The artists weren't hated at all. In fact, they were celebrated. That era between 2010 and 2016 was kinda wild. And the best time ever to be an English speaker like myself. I might talk more about this era in South Africa because honestly speaking, it literally shaped a whole like cultural wave and a whole generation. Like there's a lot of people that are very influenced by this era. In fact, even Amapiano, which yes, again, Amapiano is one of these exceptions because showcase, yes, Amapiano is purely South African. I'm not going to have this debate with you Nigerian Okies. Blood, this is South African. Ama is clearly Zulu. I don't, unless you'll have a word that, or dialect or rule of word that says Ama in your language, I don't want to hear it. I really don't want to hear it. Amapiano is purely South African. So yeah, so while the music is local, the fashion not so much. Amapiano artists dress in a way that's heavily influenced by American trends. In fact, if you compare an Amapiano artist and an American rapper, you won't really see much of a difference from how they dress. Even Young Stunner, one of the biggest Amapiano artists, was a rapper before he became an Amapiano artist. Even Reason, who transitioned to from rapping to Amapiano. And despite the American influence that's clearly in them, they are widely accepted. So basically, these exceptions would pop up depending on context and era. Sometimes copying American culture is suddenly considered cool or even aspirational, even though people still call for authentic South African content that reflects our languages, our culture, and our life experience, such as Zulu, Tonga, Venda, Sepedi, Afrikaans. You know what I'm saying? There's a clear desire for local representation, but at the same time, people will still accept and even celebrate American imitation, depending on the mood of the time. That's why excuses like we as South Africans were never taught to value our own stories is bullshit. Not complete bullshit, but bullshit. As we always valued our stories. Movies like Sarafina, Tsotsi, and Shaka Zulu, which okay, Shaka Zulu has been like, there's too much of it, to be honest with you. Like, come on, guys, why are we keep on making another Shaka Zulu story, dog? There's so much stories that we could be making, and we just focusing on Shaka Zulu. It's not that it's not a cool story. My thing is that we are using so much about dog. There is so much Shaka Zulu movies, dog. He was not the only member that was doing crazy-ish, bro. Do you know about his freaking grandmother? You should make a story about her. You know what I'm saying? Like, why always Shaka Zulu? I've known so much of Shaka Zulu that it's too much, boy. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much. And to all my Zulu watchers, I would like to say something that's very important, and I must be honest with you. I apologize for absolutely nothing. Honestly speaking, it's the truth, guys. There are better characters, there are better history figures out there that we could make videos about on a serious note. And we still have stories to tell, like Unseen, Spinners, and Losing Lerato. We had talented people like our national treasure, Leon. Honestly speaking, Leon has nothing to do with this video. I just wanted to mention my national treasure. Honestly speaking, if you don't feel like he's our national treasure, fight me. Fight me. I don't care. I don't find me outside in the parking lot. I live in the car seat. There's no parking lots here. On a serious note, we still have people who are willing to put in the work and who are passionate about what they do. From music to fashion to film and to everything in between. The real issue here, which is the reason why I just called that excuse bullshit and not complete bullshit, is that South Africa does not lack talent or creativity. It's that there's not enough people to appreciate it. That's what led to that trend of local is lacquer, which basically means that local is good. But even then, people still chose American content or copied American styles. Even when America or American culture is being heavily criticized or disliked in South Africa. There's a strange contradiction that people may criticize America, but deep down they still see America as the golden standard. Like if it rains in America, it's somehow a better type of rain. But hey, what do I know?